everyone. You're watching the Brew Crew Podcast. I'm here with my guys, Alex Rosas.
How's it going, Jake?
Alex. And Euan Lake.
Doty.
And I'm Jake Doty.
Also known as Doty.
Also known as Doty. Yeah, this is our pilot, our first episode of the Brew Crew.
Episode.
Really exciting. We started this podcast to talk about coffee. We've all been passionate and we've all grown in the coffee space. I was the guy that drank Starbucks my whole life and then discovered craft coffee and at-home coffee. And we're creating space to talk about what coffee means to us. Lattes, cafes, roasting, all the above.
Yeah. So if you like coffee, you're in the right space. But if not, you probably should click out. So
Yeah.
that's fine. Or if you're interested, totally fine. We have some friends who absolutely hate coffee, and that's okay.
But maybe we'll have them one day as a
Right.
guest.
We might have them on
That'd
the
be an
guest.
interesting perspective.
Can we break the barrier of people who hate coffee? Can we get them to like coffee? It's possible. So, yeah.
There's nothing worse. We can all agree there's nothing worse than when you talk to somebody and they say they don't like coffee.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Or they don't drink coffee.
Yeah, it's terrible.
That's not bad.
Yeah, so that's why we got started. We kind of wanted to just start with an intro and kind of share our stories. So I'll go first. I've been drinking coffee ever since I was little. I grew up in a house where we drank Starbucks French roast that was kept in the freezer. And then my mom would pull it out, scoop some into a food processor, like a hand-shaken food processor that she would actually, almost like you're making martini. You'd shake it up by your shoulder. And then
I love
once
the whole new take on frozen beans.
once it was ground, then brew that in a mocha pot on the kettle, and
Nice.
that cut with heated up milk was coffee for me. So that's how, from 4 years old, really stunted my growth. But
And where are you at now?
and
what
now
do you use at
I've progressed all the way to a full pour over setup, Akaya scales, fellow kettles.
Matte White Rocket.
Got a rocket for espresso, baristas grinders, yeah, or a full pour over setup, Chemex, even the Chemex drinking cup.
Love that.
Yeah, so made it full scale. I only drink light roast single origin now.
Wow.
But when I go back for the
Alright, okay.
holidays, I have to have a mocha pot of burnt French roast. It's the only way to go for me.
Absolutely.
Brings me back. So,
Rosas, what about you?
how about you, Rosas?
Well, I am Rosas. I probably started drinking coffee, originally, I would always get toasted marshmallow steamers when I was too young for coffee. That was maybe my foray into steamed beverages. But Starbucks, we're from Seattle, so we all have to, well, aside from you, and this we'll find out.
Clearly not from Seattle.
Yeah. Starbucks, white chocolate mochas. And then I actually had a friend who worked at a coffee shop, and he would brew pour-overs all the time. And I would try them, and it was dark black coffee that I had never had before, but it didn't need sugar. And that was kind of mind-blowing. So that probably started my journey. And then just trying to make coffee at work, because the work coffee was bad. How can I make better coffee?
It's true.
And yeah, now I'm on Team Rocket. I have a Rocket. It's black,
Nice.
powder
Love that.
coated. Thanks to Ewan. You guys will find out very soon. Ewan likes powder coating things. So yeah, just pulling usually a latte or cappuccino in the morning, and then something on filter in the afternoon. So yeah.
Nice. It's great. I always grew up with an espresso machine in our house. My parents had one for the longest time. And I feel like my progression of coffee has just been a slow, kind of steady increase. We started with an espresso machine, and then growing up, I just started to take more of an interest in it. We bought our own espresso machine when Lisa, my wife, and I got married. And then there was a Breville infuser, I think. And we had various different models. We had a Sunbeam Cafe series, if you guys ever seen those. And then purchased a Rocket espresso, same as you guys. I have various different Rockets. I've bought and sold a few and powder coated a few. And then maybe 12 months ago, sold my Rocket and purchased a decent espresso machine, it's been a lot of fun.
And your accent, that's from Tacoma, right? Or...
Yeah, down south.
Yep.
Very far south, Texas. Keep going, all the way from New Zealand. Moved over about 7 years ago for work. Yeah, originally from New Zealand.
Nice.
It's important to note just all of our origin stories. We all met at the same work, and so brewing coffee together was a part of our daily ritual.
That's where the term the Brew Crew
Yes.
came from.
That's
How did we
I
forget?
think how
We're in the
we
office together
how we
every
got
day.
here. Yeah.
Yep.
Coining the
It's
phrase.
a Slack, hey, you want to brew? And we all walk down to the office. Or, it's always working, and then you can hear someone pour beans into the Encore, and you hear that, like, psh, and then turn it on, and you're like, oh, someone's brewing, and it's probably you or Jake.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's be honest, the Baratza Encore is not the quietest grinder you've ever seen.
No.
So
Especially in a like, concrete office. Like that
hear it
So-
from the other side of the office.
I mean,
Yeah.
Wanna Brew might need to be the name of the podcast. Drop a comment below if you think it should be the Brew Crew or Wanna Brew.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's just the pilot episode.
The pilot
The
episode.
studio
Really,
might totally throw things
they
out.
might throw that out the window.
They might kick any of us out. So, yeah.
Cool. So
What are you drinking, Dodie?
yeah, well, our opening segment is what's in the cup. Today we've got a coffee from Portland, from Australia really, but they have a shop in Portland.
What's the
Proud
tagline?
Mary?
Proud
Born
Mary.
in Melbourne, roasted in Portland.
Yep.
Something like that.
Melbourne
Close.
born, Portland made.
Melbourne
Nice.
born, Portland made. Yep.
Proud Mary's, mind blown. They have like 3 tiers of coffees: mild, curious, and wild. Wild's gonna be like the crazy, fruity, single origin. This is an anaerobic natural, which probably I'm assuming means they put it in containers that lacked air, right? And it ferments. I actually don't know the science behind it, but it ferments a lot longer, and it like has more vibrant flavors.
Things like this and more are what you will learn
Right.
on the Brew Crew podcast.
We may learn and do research and tell you, but if you want research, it's probably not the pod for you.
Totally, and the flavors that you get from an anaerobic natural are like bright, vibrant, intense, which is why a lot of people like them. Right?
Awesome
pretty
cup
good.
of coffee.
We did it on Chemex, which was like maybe not the most ideal brew method, but it was good. Insert B-roll here.
Shout out Ellery for bringing his bag back from Portland for us to
Clutch.
enjoy today.
Clutch.
If you're listening, you're the man.
Yeah, so that's in the cup. So usually we'll do kind of 3 sections, sort of. We'll do what's in the cup. We're gonna jump into Brewin with Euan in a second.
All right.
And then we'll do like coffee news / general conversation, just see like what's happening.
Cool.
So, any notes on this,
Ooh.
you guys?
Okay.
Need the James Hopkins
Wait.
slurp.
Should we give it a slurp?
It's probably ASMR.
I think we broke the mic.
To be honest, it's a little bit muted, but that's
Probably
okay.
from the Chemex.
Yeah,
Right.
Chemex. But it's good. It's got like
It's definitely bright. It's vibrant. Hands down, you can tell it's a natural process.
All the
It
coke-
has such a distinctive flavor.
Yeah, all the cocoa notes. Got a little fruit in there.
yeah.
Raspberry.
I don't want to totally
It's
derail
like
us.
it's tea like, but yeah.
I don't want to totally derail
Take us
us,
there.
but quick conversation. What's your personal take on natural process beans?
versus washed.
Right, so there's like 2 completely different processing methods that create 2 fairly distinctive flavor profiles, right? So if you take like a Ethiopia Guji, which is like one of my favorite washed process, Ethiopia Guji is really different than a natural process. I got a natural process from Ilsa, I think, at the moment, and they're like, I feel like people have different points of view about whether they like the wild, intense, vibrant flavors of natural, or if that's like too overwhelming. What do you got? Do you like natural process?
I'm definitely a washed guy. I prefer, I just think it's a little bit cleaner cup and more consistent. I want to, all of my espressos right now are washed because I know I'm going to get a consistent cup from my morning. I think maybe on pour over I prefer natural because that's where I want a little bit more of a wild red.
I feel like I've done a bit of a the reason I asked the question is because I realize I feel like I've done a bit of a 360 where I used to like washed and then I found natural and I was like, whoa, this is intense and crazy and tastes great. But then the more that I've had them, the more that I've realized like maybe it's a bit too intense and I kind of prefer wash process.
Yeah, I kind of like, at least lately, I'm big on like the natural kick, just because I know like the crazy tastes and flavors. There's a coffee roasting company called Luminous, which we've had. If you haven't had
Yep.
it, you guys should check it out. They have lately been doing a lot of like natural anaerobic coffees, which like are just great, like literal just fruit in your mouth, which is just wild in a coffee. And so I've just like been like always just chasing that down lately. But I agree with you, Jake, that the wash is usually a little bit more tame. I also feel like trying to pull natural on espresso every day, it could be a different dial in.
True.
Which is
It's the labor,
yeah, it's slightly annoying, but it's like kind of fun when you get it because you're like, oh, this is literally blueberries. But yeah, I don't know. I kind of go back and forth. But I also think there's like maybe like a stigma around natural as it being better, which isn't necessarily the case. But
true.
it's also like a lot more acidic.
Yeah.
Right? So,
The guy-
I guess it's like anything with coffee though.
Right.
It's like personal preference. What you enjoy might be quite different than what someone else enjoys, right?
if you brew a
Hence the
natural coffee for someone who has never had like someone who's used to Folgers, so I've brewed that for like for my in-laws. I've brewed them like a geisha. I've made them like a fruit bomb natural,
Like the most
and-
expensive coffees you can.
right. And like, of course, they will prefer the Folgers, but the natural is like way too acidic, and it's like,
Can't handle
wait,
it.
this doesn't taste like coffee. But like our taste buds are like kind of in tune with
You're
that.
right, dude.
Right.
Yeah.
Whereas like you might have like, you know, Denny's coffee, and you're like, get that out of here. But yeah, I don't know.
Totally.
Denny's is Denny's like a.
Oh, you've never been to Denny's?
Is it like a restaurant?
Yeah,
Wow.
I think
Just
there's
like-
Denny's in New Zealand, but that was always the like you go at 1 a.m. for pancakes.
Exactly.
Mom and pop diner.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like
The
batch
246
brew.
menu.
The 246 exactly. Yeah, I think that one of the key differentiators for a lot of people is just with the natural, it's going to be a lot harder to brew. Like you're going to spend more time dialing it in and making it perfect, whereas for maybe a daily workflow, a wash makes more sense. So for a lot of people, you know, they want to wash for their daily life, but then when they're into natural, it's because they're pursuing like their desire is to go get into the crazy stuff. It's like wine almost, or anything, you know, even chocolate, right? Like you start with a milk chocolate and then get into the 70%, 80% cacao, dark chocolate, different tasting notes.
Feel it.
Anyway,
This is also, as it's cooling, it's like very tea-like. Like I get like a, almost like a, not a green tea, it's almost just like a tea, like a black tea or something that's like slightly flavored.
It's fascinating how the flavor of coffee changes so much as it cools, especially in a pour over.
Yeah. I had a friend, Connor, who some of you know.
Oh, yeah.
Shout out Connor for listening. He like, remember when he told us like, oh, you should wait for the coffee to cool down to like room temp really. And then it's like when I first tried that, it was like, whoa, like this is a different
Taste.
drink. Versus, you know, some people are like, oh, my coffee's cold, I gotta heat it up. And it's like, don't do it. But
Put it back in the microwave.
yeah, exactly.
That's the worst.
You know who you are. Should we jump into brewing with Euan?
yeah, what's brewing with Euan?
Let's do
So
it.
for just like
Can you get some context?
for
'Cause
a
I'm-
precursor.
All right.
This is, folks, Euan Lake of the diaspora and the decent community. A legend.
Give it up.
You may
Give
have
it
seen. Give it up. You may have seen his drip trays that he designed and had just like cut out of metal and like powder coated. We'll throw
been
a
fun.
picture up. He's literally a legend. And so we had this idea. Euan is always, he has a decent espresso machine, which he can explain, but he's always pulling different recipes and like trying like blooming shots, stuff that Jake and I can't do on our machines. And quite frankly, we're just too simple of we're just two simple guys. We don't-
It's another level. Euan
It's
has
crossing the
graduated.
threshold.
He's
crossed the
graduated from the
threshold.
rocket community, and he is now in the Elon Musk of coffee space.
Right. And it's so fascinating. We thought we should just make a section called Brewin with Euan.
And
because-
hopefully each week we'll have some interesting things to talk about.
right.
So-
Hopefully.
Hopefully, we'll
So-
see.
So tell us about your decent
Well, I
journey.
guess I'll start with a decent.
Yeah.
That's probably the first thing. So for the longest time, I mean, well, actually, quick like precursor, probably 7 years ago, 8 years ago maybe, at least, someone gifted a Rocket, did I tell you guys this? Someone gifted a Rocket espresso machine to my dad, and he used it for a while, but enjoyed coffee, but was never like into the details enough to buy a decent grinder. Didn't mean that. To buy a good enough grinder to know how to dial it in and those kinds of things. So it sat in his garage, his garage in New Zealand for like 4 years and just unused. And then when they came to visit us, he packed it up, brought it over as his checked-in luggage, and gifted it to Lisa and I, which was awesome. So we used that for maybe 5 years, loved it. And then for the last maybe 2 years ago, I found out about the decent espresso machines, and they're super fascinating. People describe it as like the Tesla of espresso machines, because in a lot of what it does, it's completely different in the way that it operates. And it has a tablet which is mounted on the top that gives you a live readout of pressure and flow, and you can create different kinds of profiles and all these kinds of things. So super fascinating. So about 12 months ago, I decided to sell my rocket, and I bought a decent espresso. So I've had a huge amount of fun, like learning all about those kinds of machines, creating different kinds of profiles. The one that I've been enjoying the most at the moment is super fascinating, is probably the blooming espresso. So blooming espresso is kind of like pour over. You know, when you start a pour over, you add a bit of water and you leave it for about 30 seconds to bloom, to let the carbon dioxide come out, and it gives a more consistent extraction, those kinds of things. So for a blooming espresso, the tablet allows you to control the machine. So it'll start with a pre-infusion, and then it'll turn off the pumps on the machine, and it will pause for about 30 seconds, like a normal bloom for pour over. And then it ramps up, and it'll dynamically change the RPMs of the pumps in the machine to create whatever pressure is needed to give you a specific amount of flow. So it comes out as like 2.2 milliliters of extraction a second. And it creates this like taller, kind of halfway between like an espresso and Americano. Tall, strong.
What's the weight of it at the end?
So I've been doing a 1-to-3 ratio, so it'll be 20 grams of ground coffee to 60 grams of extraction.
Of yield.
And that's one of the things that's super fascinating about the Decent. I think is one of the coolest features, is its automatic stop at weight function. So you can have a scale which connects over Bluetooth to the machine, and it will automatically stop the extraction or turn off the pumps when it detects that it hits the weight that you put in. So if you program it for 60 grams of espresso, then it will automatically turn off, which is really cool. So it creates this like bright, vibrant, really flavorful, strong, kind of tall espresso, and it's really nice.
So for those of you listening, this is the kind of stuff that Euan's doing on a regular basis. Just
At 8 a.m., 7 a.m. in the morning, he's running algorithms on how to extract espresso. Meanwhile, Jake and I, half eyes open, are like
just trying to make a cappuccino. Yeah. So blooming espresso, you get a cup of coffee that you're not then steaming milk with. Like this is it's enjoyed as a Americano almost.
Yeah, normally I'll drink it just as a straight espresso, kind of halfway between espresso and Americano. I've also really been enjoying, you guys will give me hassle for this, but I love it over ice. Like an iced blooming espresso is really nice. So I'll often do that in the morning, or like if I put one in the afternoon, it's great.
I feel like this is a great time for a poll.
Yeah,
We
iced coffee versus hot coffee.
Euan could
Any kind of ice drinks.
any ice
pour
drink
over,
at any time of the day. Like we're talking as soon as he wakes up.
middle of winter, we're in Seattle, it's pouring
exactly,
down.
It's about to get so cold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not
So
yet.
Jake and I think that's weird. Summer is different, but like winter, you don't do anything ice. Like for coffee at least. It's
Like-
a little bit weird.
For context for listeners, it's September in Seattle, and there'll be maybe 1 or 2 months more of like decent weather. So we should probably actually feature what's in the cup should be an iced pour over.
That's true.
Probably.
Next week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We can. Yeah, we probably should.
Yeah.
So I feel like that can kind of wrap up, I don't know, this week's segment is just like an intro to the decent espresso world, blooming espressos. Maybe we can drop in some B-roll of making one of those or something. That'd be cool.
Yeah.
Next week, hopefully, or maybe a couple of weeks podcast, we'll see. I've made my next purchase, which I'm super pumped about. I'm waiting
Ladies and gentlemen, when you hear I've made my next purchase, you know it's about to get real.
So I've been using a niche zero grinder for a long time. Awesome grinder. It's like probably the best in its price range. It's great. But I am waiting on the delivery of a Lagom P64, which is a 64 millimeter flat burr grinder. Also in matte black, so it'll kind of fit in with the setup. And hopefully that arrives in a week or two. So
So exciting.
maybe we can talk about that.
And
in,
Jake is getting
next
the
segment.
niche, right?
and then Jake is
Yeah.
buying the niche,
Nice.
Yeah.
which would be
Very
great.
cool.
Which will sit next to my matte white rocket, which will be really exciting.
Yeah,
Love
we're
that.
very color coded around here when it comes to our machines. So
Just enough to be dangerous, right? We
Yeah,
know just enough to be
absolutely.
dangerous.
yep, absolutely. I mean, we're walking into Starbucks, those baristas are shaking in their boots. So
They're quaking.
yeah, absolutely.
So last segment.
Yeah, last segment. So last segment we'll kind of just talk about like coffee news, just random thoughts. This is where we maybe will have like a guest on. We know some people who own cafes. We might have people who hate coffee, see what they think about coffee, see if we can change their mind. I've done it once. And so, yeah, we'll just kind of like chat about kind of stuff like that. Before we head there, quick poll. Is iced coffee okay at all times of the year, or is it reserved to just the hot months? Let us know.
I'm actually interested to see what the results are of this.
Right.
'Cause
Yeah.
I feel like it's not that crazy. But
Some people
I
are-
guess the results
they're out
will,
there.
the
Listen,
results
the
will tell
internet's
us.
big, okay, and there's also
Yeah.
trolls. So probably everyone's gonna vote for ice, but we'll see. So
There's
be
some
honest.
strong supporters I know.
Yeah, absolutely. Your people are out there.
They're out there. Nikolai. So I think another thing we could do with that segment, like whether we're having a guest on or not, would be to do a tasting maybe and like have like a cupping, or we could probably do some fun stuff like that.
Yeah, maybe we'll feature like
Activities.
we're always getting new beans from all over, so maybe we'll like give our thoughts on like a bean or a roaster.
Recommendation?
If there's-
I
Yeah,
like
if there's
that.
any like, if you guys have recommendations, stuff we should try, let us know. If you want to send us something, we're open to that too. Just send us a message. But yeah, I think the one thing that I'm kind of like keeping my eye on right now in the coffee gear space, we're probably all like coffee gear heads. I'd say that, and I'm really keeping an eye on the Eureka Mignon single dose grinder, which is like supposedly coming very soon. I went into a local retailer, which I won't name because then you're gonna know, but they said they had test units, and I've also seen people online saying places in Canada have test units. So these test units are
Okay.
essentially what the distributors get, and they test it out to see what do we think about it, and then we decide how many purchase orders they want to make. So that was probably like this month in September. So I'm guessing we'll maybe see that
Hopefully.
like hit market.
In time for Christmas.
Yeah, in time for Christmas, which will be great. The cool thing about it is we all kind of like the single dose, which essentially means we weigh out each dose of coffee rather than putting it all in the hopper, partially for freshness a little bit, partially like to be really precise, I think. But
Well, so Dodie doesn't single dose.
okay.
right?
I don't single dose.
okay.
Yeah, so
Never mind.
So
Sorry.
let's
Edit
talk
that out.
about let's talk about single dosing. Single dosing, I think, is a fairly new concept. I think most
probably
cafes,
true.
anywhere you've walked into a shop, right, you see a big grinder with a big hopper with a bunch of beans in it, and they're weighing out onto a scale and then grinding and brewing. Single dosing, I mean, just in the last 3 or 4 years, right, has
Yeah,
taken
probably.
off. So you've got like my grinder at home is a Baratza Sette, and Euan used to have the same grinder
Yep.
years back,
And so you'd fill up the entire hopper, right?
Well-
or halfway.
and then you converted to the 3D printed single dosing
which I
tray,
now,
which
well,
now
yeah,
you
now
use,
I
right?
have that,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Sure.
okay.
so I replaced the hopper with a little 3D printed.
To get down to single dose,
And so the goal there is like, well, one of the reasons that we started is Lisa, my wife, like only drinks decaf. And so we'd change between decaf and regular beans all the time. And only having one grinder, it makes it a lot easier to not have to empty the hopper every time to swap between beans.
Right.
Or if I've got multiple different bags and you're trying different coffees, it makes it a lot easier to swap. And
I
then you
guess that's an interesting like thought. Is since single
Why
dosing is
single
relatively
dosing?
new, why would you do it?
Yeah,
I feel like I maybe do it one because I hate when like I kind of like to keep. I have a little stand, so I don't want to get like coffee beans everywhere. So if I like overdose or like my time's not right or something happens, I would rather have less of a mess. So maybe it's a little bit cleaner. I also have this like bottomless scale thing, so if I pour out my whole coffee bag, it'll order me a new one, which I don't want to do. So it's kind of like.
that should be a whole conversation on its own. Maybe we should come back to that.
Yeah, we can
About
come back. We can
bottomless in that
definitely come back.
process.
this episode
But-
is not sponsored by
Not
Bottomless.
sponsored by
Yeah,
Bottomless,
yeah,
but-
yeah.
So I feel like there's a bunch of benefits, at least in my point of view, is being able to swap between different beans. I feel like your beans can stay fresher for longer because they're not sitting in the hopper. Maybe it's cleaner or more
See, part
accurate.
of me, like, I wonder, could we really taste the difference? You know, like, Euan has these like little tubes that he like vacuum seals,
Test
so that
tubes.
doesn't really
Yeah.
count.
So I
but-
recently picked up a company called Weber Workshops make the bean cellars, which are like individual dosing, and
By sellers, he means CELARS, not SELLERS.
cellars.
Sellers.
And so they have a one-way valve in them, so when you dose your beans in, they can release as they degas, but it doesn't let oxygen in. And then you can throw them in the freezer too, which is like a whole other conversation I'd be interested to have at some point. But the reason, one of the things about talking about that is Dodie doesn't single dose at the moment. We both do. When I purchase when my Lagom P64 arrives, and you're going to pick up the niche, which I think is going to be awesome. I'm fascinated to see what
you will have
your
to single dose.
yeah. I'm fascinated to see what your like thoughts are on that as you change workflow.
So we've talked about the advantages of single dosing, right? Freshness of the beans, simplicity of cleanup, right? What are the other reasons? Not having to have two grinders, right? Like a cafe, they're going to have a dedicated decaf grinder, but at home, no one has the money to buy two espresso grinders. So having a single dose, you can swap between decaf and regular. For me, it's all about the number of steps to make coffee. When I wake up in the morning, I just want
efficiency of workflow.
Efficiency of workflow.
Okay.
That's my thing. So I like to take my portafilter, dose my washed processed coffee that I know that as long as I dose this amount of grams of coffee, it's going to come out perfect. Tamp it, pull the shot, off you go. I'm starting my day. I got my start to finish under 3 minutes. I can make a latte for myself.
So hopefully in a couple of weeks when you pick up the niche,
I'll have to adapt.
It'll be interesting to have a discussion about what you think the new workflow is like, and if you like it, you don't, what that looks like.
I'll have to hijack part of the What's Brewing With You in section to talk about my new workflow.
Maybe you could try to 3D print a hopper for the niche, which goes against it. But
Backwards. We're going backwards.
you would be the first guy to have a hoppered niche.
I am going to rely on Euan to help me 3D print a portafilter holder, because right now the niche you dose out into a dosing cup, and then that goes into the portafilter. Too many steps.
Right.
So
Ruining
whereas
efficiency.
you want to grind directly into the portafilter.
Directly into the portafilter.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because do you also do like puck prep, like the things that you and I do?
No puck prep.
See, that's the other thing too. Is you and I are like very meticulous about our puck prep. So for like context, probably doesn't make sense, but we take a little. It's pretty much like little
WDT tool.
WDT tool, Weiss distribution.
It's called
technique.
a puck rake by some.
Right. It's a newer thing that people have been doing, I guess. And you just like, it's little little acupuncture
Like needles.
needles. Yeah. And you just break up any clumps so that you have an even extraction.
So
there's a lot of debate
for the
on
listeners
like,
at home,
if it's
right?
worth it, but
You can buy as many. Like there's so many. The coffee space has been expanding, and there
sure.
are all of these little niche products that you can buy to
no
you
pun
know.
intended.
Oh no. There's a lot of decent products on the market.
But see, I feel like the difference is I'm going to make 2 coffees, maybe 3 coffees a day. And so of those 3 coffees, I want to enjoy them as much as I can. So if that takes me an extra 30 seconds to get rid of clumps, to make sure I'm going to have a better tasting coffee, I feel like that 30 seconds is well worth it.
And also, beans are not cheap, right? Like this bag of beans is $25, and so every shot you pull, you don't want to have wasted that shot.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Something we should talk about for next week. I know we're coming to being 28 minutes. To tag on to that, I'm gonna note it. There's a new grinder that came out with Clive Coffee, and it's a Eureka Atom 75. But they partnered with Mistobox, which is like a coffee subscription company, and they pre-dialed in all of the coffee beans. So of all the beans that are on subscription, Clive has a team that went in and said, hey, if you're doing like the Proud Mary, Mind Blown, whatever, this is where you'll start. So because their idea was
Interesting.
on that idea is you waste beans. Some people might waste.
Expensive
if
waste.
you don't know what you're doing, you might waste half the bag just dialing it in, which has happened before. And
For sure.
And so their thought is, it's an expensive grinder. It's just shy of $2,000. But their thought is you can do that and it's Wi-Fi connected, and then they remove all of the guesswork for you.
It's
so
Wi-Fi connected?
Yeah,
As
so
in,
it connects over Wi-Fi.
they're
At
going to
least I'm
send
pretty sure it
you
does.
X bag of beans, the Proud Mary,
and then
Mind
you
Blowing.
select I think on your phone which bean you're using, and then I don't know how it works, but
And it changes the grind setting to match for that bag?
Yeah.
Interesting.
This could all be paraphrasing, so I'll link it in the description below.
Link it
I hadn't heard about that.
Link
It's
in
a
bio.
fascinating concept.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So
Yeah.
I don't know if it's like fully out yet, but I'm interested to see like that concept of not wasting beans. But also, if you're spending just shy of $2,000 on a grinder, I hope you maybe just know how to dial in pretty quickly. But
So those are two grinders that are interesting to watch. The Eureka single dosing, and then the one that you're talking about as they come out. That's going to be interesting.
yeah,
Cool.
So all that and more. But yeah, we probably should wrap it up.
Cool.
Any other thoughts? I hope the network picks this up. Is really my hope. So if you guys can just give us a like and subscribe. Go follow us on Instagram. I believe it's Brew Crew Podcast.
Brewcrew.podcast.
We should just look.
We'll link it in.
Yeah, we'll link it in. But yeah,
This has been fun. It's going to be great. So what's the goal here? Are we going to do this? What kind of cadence?
Every other week, once a month,
Okay.
however often
once
we
a
feel
month,
like
every
it.
6 months.
Yeah.
Yeah. It just depends. It depends on the initial investment round. We'll see. We'll see who picks it up. But
What our
you
first
might
round of
you might see
funding
us on
is.
HBO Max next season. So we'll see. But,
Cool.
yeah.
Well, looking forward to next week.
Yeah. Thanks so much to all our listeners.
All 5 of you, and we will see you guys next week.
Signing off.
See ya.
Cheers.